Internet.
People with no budget, could start in the first appreciating the hands. If I don't have something, you get insurance or must start one by we will start the next one. That's
Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in another 5 minutes. I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and take stage for the bus. One, we should can try. Meeting working now. Request businesses. Should be okay. Fix chairs and that's all. Stage people times it. I'm not
Distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, discussants, and fellow RGNUL students, Namaste and a very warm welcome to the first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference on Emerging Trends in India's Foreign Policy, with special focus on West Asia and Africa. We have Professor Dr. Anand Pawar, Vice Chancellor RGNUL, joining us online. We also have Justice S. Thurai Raja, Judge Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, as our chief guest, join online. We have Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia as the keynote speaker for this session. I invite Sir to please join us on stage. I also invite Professor Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur, Dean Academics RGNUL, to join us on stage.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. As we stand at the precipice of a dynamic and complex world order, understanding India's changing trends, foreign policy talks, and crucial dimension. The first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, being organized by Department of Political Science at the Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab, is sponsored by Indian Council of World Affairs, and Manupatra is our legal tech partner. The conference serves as a vital platform to delve into key trends shaping India's engagement with West Asia and Africa, regions brimming with opportunities and challenges.
Without further ado, I invite Professor Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur, Dean Academics, Dr. Neeraj Pasricha, Finance Officer, Mr. Saurav Kumar, Assistant Professor and Convener, First YSC, Ms. Aditi Dupe, Assistant Professor and Organizing Secretary, First YSC, and Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia, our keynote speaker, to come forward and set the conference in motion by lighting the lamp.
I now request Professor Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur, Dean Academics, to felicitate our keynote speaker, Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia. Proceeding further, I request Professor Dr. Kamiljit Kaur to please come here and deliver a speech.
My dearest students, dignitaries, guests, I'm here to give the welcome address. I firstly formally invite Chief Justice, Justice S. Thuraya Raja, who is the sitting judge of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, who is our chief guest. Our keynote speaker is Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, who served in South Africa, Myanmar, Kenya, amongst other important positions. We also have amongst us Professor Mohammed Khalid from Punjab University, Chandigarh, Professor Ashwini Mohapatra from JNU, Professor Suresh Kumar from Delhi University, Professor Sujata Ashwarya from Jamia Millia, Professor Mujib Alam from Jamia, Professor Bawa Singh from Central University of Punjab. This conference is the first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, and this theme of this conference is Emerging Trends in India's Foreign Policy with special focus on West Asia and Africa. Now, this conference is the first of its kind that we're having in RGNUL. There are more than 50 participants who are going to be presenting papers in 7 technical sessions and, of course, in these 2 plenary sessions. There will be experts on foreign policy in West Asia and Africa who will be chairing the technical sessions. So the theme, as I said, is Emerging Trends in India's Foreign Policy with focus in West Asia and Africa. And the best papers are going to be published in an edited volume. So I'm very confident that this is going to be a great intellectual treat for all of us. And I heartily, from the bottom of my heart, I extend my warmest and most pleasant morning and heartiest welcome to all the chief guests, the participants and students. We sincerely hope it's going to be a grand success. In fact, I'm very confident of it. So thank you so much for coming and welcome once again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As the world witnesses political shifts, evolving power dynamics, and growing economic interconnectivity, India's strategic partnership play a critical role. This conference allows us to dissect the multifaceted relationship with West Asia and Africa, navigating a complex reality like energy security, regional stability, and cultural exchanges. I invite Mr. Saurav Kumar, Assistant Professor, RGNUL, and convener, first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, to shed light on the intricacies of India's approach to navigating historical ties, evolving alliances, and emerging opportunities in this crucial region, and share the vision of the conference.
Thank you, Divisha and Haripriya. Good morning to all of you. As the convener of the first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, I welcome our body dignitaries, university functionaries, the participants, and my dear students. The first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference at the esteemed Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law envisions itself as a pivotal platform for igniting scholarly discourse and insightful deliberations on the evolving dynamics of India's foreign policy towards West Asia and Africa. Amidst the backdrop of a rapidly changing landscape characterized by India's burgeoning engagements with the regions of West Asia and Africa, this conference aspires to serve as a beacon of intellectual exploration and scholarly inquiry. It seeks to encapsulate the essence of India's diplomatic journey, unraveling the threads that weave together this intricate tapestry of foreign policy pursuits in these vital regions. With a keen focus on fostering interdisciplinary dialogues and facilitating the exchange of ideas, the conference envisions itself as a crucible wherein young scholars, seasoned academics, and esteemed researchers converge to unravel the nuanced contours of India's strategic engagements. It seeks to transcend disciplinary boundaries, embracing diverse perspectives from the realms of international relations, political science, economics, history, sociology, and cultural studies, amongst others. At its core, the conference aspires to be a catalyst for generating actionable insights with tangible policy implications, thereby contributing to the formulation of an informed and nuanced foreign policy framework. It envisions forging meaningful connections and fostering enduring collaborations between emerging scholars and established academics, nurturing a vibrant ecosystem of scholarly exchange and collaboration. Through its meticulously curated themes encompassing historical narratives, the dynamics of unstable regimes, the trajectory of South-South cooperation, India's soft power endeavors, and the interface of West Asia and Africa with international law, the conference envisages charting new frontiers of knowledge and understanding. It seeks to pave the way for cutting-edge research, scholarly publications, and academic endeavors that resonate beyond the confines of academia, leaving an indelible remark on the trajectory of India's engagement with these pivotal regions. In essence, this vision, the vision of the first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, is to be a beacon of intellectual rigor, scholarly excellence, and transformative insights, shaping the discourse on India's foreign policy towards West Asia and Africa, and charting a course towards a more informed, engaged, and dynamic diplomatic landscape. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.
Keeping their attention undisturbed, let us now tune and listen to our chief guest, Justice S. Thurairaja, Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. Sir is a Bachelor's of Law from University of Colombo and a Master's of Law from University of London. Sir was a High Court judge at High Court Fiji. He was appointed President in Council in 2016. Justice Thurairaja was appointed to the Court of Appeal of Sri Lanka in September 2016, becoming the first Indian Tamil to be appointed to the court. He was sworn as the Justice of Supreme Court in 2019. We welcome you, sir.
Good morning to all. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Looking at the young, energetic crowd, I wish I could have accepted Professor Dr. Anand Pawar's invitation to be there physically. I met Professor in a very high-powered Commonwealth conference recently held in Delhi, I think presided by the President as well as the Prime Minister. Then Professor Pawar said that, no, you have to come. I said, no, I just came and I won't be able to take a break. Then he said, no, you have to come. He was so persuasive, and I said, okay, I'll break it, but I'll come online. It may not be influential as we are present there. I wish and pray that I'm with this beautiful place in the near future. Coming back to our submission, I'm compelled to read the written note. As you all know, that sitting judges can't make offhand speeches. So I'm going back to the reading of note. I'm sorry about it. Dear Vice Chancellor, Ambassador, faculty, organizers, participants, and my dear brothers and sisters. As we gathered here today to reflect on emerging trends in India's foreign policy, it is imperative that we confront the realities of our interconnected world head-on with a sense of responsibility and urgency. The landscape of international affairs is undergoing a profound changes characterized by a complex interplay of geopolitical dynamics, pressing global issues, and most of all, economic challenges. In my address, I wish to provide my take on the current state of world politics and discuss as to the importance of having a principled approach to our foreign affairs. The center stage of global politics is occupied by the persistent struggle for power and influence among major actors on the world arena. The resurgence of great power competition, particularly between the United States, China, and Russia, has fueled tensions and reshaped diplomatic relations. Now, India too has emerged as one of the key variables in the equation. The rivalry between the powers manifests in various forms, from trade disputes and military posture to technological competition and ideological clash. As we navigate these complexities, it is essential to recognize the potential risk of escalating conflicts and the importance of diplomacy in mitigation tensions and preserving peace. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed and exacerbated the vulnerabilities and inequalities of our interconnected world. It claimed millions of lives, disrupted economies, and created serious social and political tensions. As we strive to recover from its devastating impact, it is essential to prioritize international cooperation and solidarity. In addition to traditional threats, we are also confronted with myriad of transitional challenges that transcend national borders. Climate change, environmental degradation, terrorism, and emerging cyber threats have become increasingly troubling over the years. Addressing such transboundary challenges clearly requires concerted efforts and collective action, whether it is through multilateral agreements, diplomatic negotiations, or grassroots activism. Effective cooperation is paramount if we are to safeguard the future of our planet. In this ever-changing world, fraught with uncertainties, principles serve as our guiding light, anchoring our actions and decisions in normative values that define who we are as collective. A principled foreign policy refers to a diplomatic approach or strategy adopted by a nation that is based on a set fundamental principles, values, and beliefs. These principles guide a country's interactions with other state and non-state actors in global issues. While specific principles may vary from country to country, some universal elements such as respect for sovereignty, adherence to international law, promotion of human rights and democracy, commitment to peaceful conflict resolution, commitment to environmental sustainability, and promotion of peace and stability remain common. At the core principled foreign policy lies the fundamental beliefs in upholding human dignity, democracy, and rule of law. These are not merely abstract academic concepts, but the very essence of our identities as nations committed to justice, freedom, and equality. They signify the values that underpin a civilized society. Extending well beyond their political roots, these principles are well ingrained even in domestic and international jurisprudence. In times of crisis and uncertainty, it is our principles that provide us with strength and resilience to navigate the turbulent waters of international politics with dignity and honor. Today, the rise of non-state actors, including multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations, and even terrorist organizations, further complicates the global politics. Globalization in all forms has facilitated unprecedented levels of interdependence among nations. creating both opportunities and challenges for state. Issues such as climate change, pandemics, terrorism, and nuclear proliferation transcend national borders, requiring coordinated international efforts to address effectively. Moreover, technological advancement have transformed the nature of diplomacy and warfare, introducing new dimensions of threats. Particularly, the developments in communication technology have democratized information and misinformation. People in general are now either well-informed or severely misinformed on matter of global politics. And they have also become increasingly influential in that regard, for better or worse. In such context, a principled policy fosters credibility and trust among nations as well as within nations. By consistently upholding principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability, a nation can build stronger diplomatic relations and alliance based on mutual respect and shared values. Such credibilities and alliances in garnering international support and cooperation. If you look at the nation, if you look at the notion of principled foreign policy from South Asian lens, both India and Sri Lanka play a crucial role. On the one hand, being the economic superpower in the region, India's principled foreign policy is crucial for maintaining stability and security in the South Asian region. On the other, Sri Lanka's constructive engagements with its neighboring countries and participation in regional forums have addressed common challenges and helped in the pursuit of shared interest for the benefit of the entire region. By engaging in fair, transparent, and productive economic diplomacy, India has bolstered its credibility among neighboring nations as a dependable ally. It is India's principled foreign policy that places it as a responsible rising power at the world stage. By upholding principles of democracy, pluralism, and non-aggression, India has been able to exert moral leadership and influence global affairs in a positive direction. This has generated for India what several recent debates in world politics label as soft power on the world stage. Pardon me. Despite the daunting challenges in global politics today, there are still reasons for hope and optimism. The resilience and adaptability of the human spirit, coupled with advances and technology and innovation, offer opportunities for positive change. By harnessing the power of collective action, we can overcome the divisions that divide us and build more just, peaceful, and sustainable world for future generations. The current state of world politics is characterized by complexity, uncertainty, and unprecedented challenges. Yet, it is also a moment of opportunity, a chance for us to come together as a global community, reaffirm and reinforce positive norms for forge a path towards a better future. Let us seize this moment with courage, determination, and most importantly, solidarity. For it is only together we have the shape to, we have the shape the course of history and create world peace, justice, prosperity shall prevail. Wish all the participants a great experience and exposure in the conference. Thank you very much and all the very best. Hope and pray that I am with you all in this lovely place, which is one of my dream place to visit, the Golden Temple. I wish that I will get an opportunity to visit all of you all, and may I congratulate all the participants and wish all of you all best of luck and a very productive sessions. Thank you very much and God bless.
Thank you for your enlightening words, sir. I now invite Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia, our keynote speaker, to the dais to deliver an address. Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia is Distinguished Fellow, Foreign Studies Program at Gateway House. He is a member of CII's International Advisory Council, Trade Policy Council, and Africa Committee. He is a founding member of the Kalinga International Foundation and a member of the Governing Council of Asian Conference. As Director General of the Indian Council of World Affairs, ICWA, from 2012 to 15, he played a key role in strengthening India's track to research and outreach activities. During a 37-year career in the Indian Foreign Service, Sir has served as ambassador to Myanmar and Mexico and as the High Commissioner to Kenya, South Africa, and Lesotho. Sir holds a master's degree in political science from Allahabad University. Sir has also authored multiple books with reputed publishers that are receiving very positive reviews. We welcome you, sir.
Good morning to all of you. When I was serving in Africa, I noted a very endearing habit. After the first speaker who would address everybody on the podium and in the front row by their names and designations, the subsequent speakers, when they will come, they would simply say, all protocols observed. And it's used to save a lot of time. But we are not in Africa, so I'll adopt the middle position. And I would like to present my greetings to Justice Thurai Raja for a very inspiring address, for a judge to speak about the foreign policy of a neighboring country with scholarship and knowledge is, in my humble view, truly commendable. I'm especially grateful that Dr. Pawar is listening to us. We have the Dean, Dr. Kaur, and I'm particularly grateful to Professor Saurabh Kumar, who was so persuasive when he invited me that I really felt very welcomed and wanted. And I also recognize Aditi Dubey sitting here on the dais. I have met and talked to all the experts sitting in the front row, and I'm looking forward to really listening to them. And I know that my work here is to present some elaboration of an excellent concept note that was prepared by the organizers for this conference. And in a way, I'm in a good position to do this because now I'm neither a diplomat nor a PhD kind of a scholar. I stand somewhere in between. I'm a former diplomat working for a think tank. But what I'd love to do is to contribute to public debate on India's foreign policy. And so please treat this not as a lecture from the high podium to you, but it is more a conversation with you, the young citizens of India, who have been looking forward to this event for quite some time. And I'm sure many of us would try hard to add to your understanding if not knowledge, so that at the end of this conference, you feel that the hard work put in by the organizers was fully justified. I have roughly about 15, 16 minutes left now. And what I plan to do is to highlight some of the emerging trends in India's foreign policy and then focus a little bit more on the two thematic areas which have been specially selected for this conference. These are the two areas on which the visiting experts will share their knowledge and deep insights with you in the subsequent sessions. But before we talk about the foreign policy, by way of introduction, I think we have to recognize that the world is changing, and the only constant in the world is change itself. As you can imagine, I'm part of many WhatsApp groups. And one of the WhatsApp groups run by the former ambassadors became very hot because one of the former colleagues asked the question, where is the world going today? And one of the mischievous colleague of mine, another former ambassador, he said, the world is going to hell. When you read about what is happening in Rafah and Gaza, and when you recognize that probably over 40,000 people have been killed, most of them women and children and civilians, perhaps that mischievous answer does not look so mischievous. Because not merely people are getting killed, but it seems that it doesn't matter to the rest of the world. We keep doing our things. Therefore, I think it is important to understand that indeed the world in the recent years is facing multiple challenges, multiple crises. And without going back to 10 or 20 years, we can say certainly from 2019 or 2020, when the COVID started, whether it was end 2019 or early 2020, from then to now, every time a crisis comes and the world feels, my God, this one crisis is enough for us. COVID, financial crisis, Ukraine, Gaza, Red Sea. And you really marvel as to how many more crises the world can face and survive. So in this situation, you can imagine that the task of those who are crafting and running India's foreign policy also has become much more difficult and much more complex than it used to be. And then on top of that, as Justice Durai Raja was saying, the world, in terms of the equations among the major countries of the world, has changed tremendously. I mean, I would like to simply mention this to you, that when we began, our generation began to study international relations, we used to start from 1945, the end of the Second World War. And there was only one word that explained the politics of the world from 1945 till 1991, and that was called bipolarity. In simple English, there were two major power blocks led by the US and the Soviet Union, and the politics could be explained easily. Then when the Cold War ended, came the age of unipolarity. There was only one country that counted, the dominant US, and for about 10 years or so, that unipolar moment, as we experts call it, stayed. But thereafter, starting from roughly 2001, when America's power began to erode, we saw that the world was shifting from unipolarity gradually to bipolarity and eventually back to multipolarity. By 2008, China's rise becomes prominent. And thereafter, in the last 13, 14 years, we have seen, as the Justice said, the intensification of the US-China strategic contestation. So this is where we were when these multiple crises began to unleash on us. And so, when people in the South Bloc, the name of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, look at the world, they have to recognize all these trends in order to respond and make sure that India's national interests are protected through a very scientific method of running foreign policy of a democratic India. Now, in this context, what I would like to say in my second part very quickly is to highlight some of the emerging trends, because this is what the theme is. And here, I think the first point to remember is that in the last 2 decades or so, let us say starting at the beginning of this century, India's worldview is changing and India's ambition has also changed. Our worldview is now truly global. From Latin America to South Pacific, from Africa to Central Asia, there is hardly any region in which India is not interested. India is interested in developing closer ties with all the important regions of the world, and that is what we mean when we say the worldview has expanded. And so has India's ambition. Until just a few years back, India was happy to be a balancer or a balancing power among various camps. But now, as very repeatedly our leaders would put it to you, India's ambition is to be a leading power in the world. And this is now backed by strength because India's economy has been doing very well. There is political stability in the country. There is a strong leader and leadership, and there's a very active interest in foreign affairs. So putting all these factors together, we can clearly say that India is getting ready to play a more significant, a more prominent role than it could in earlier period. So there is this, what we call the activism of foreign policy or activism in foreign policy. And that is why I'm not surprised the organizers thought of particularly choosing this topic. When it comes to the content of the foreign policy, because emerging trends come from that content, we cannot speak at length, but I would like to pinpoint only 4 specific trends here. The first one is that we still focus on the neighborhood. Neighborhood first policy remains in operation, although I must candidly say we are facing headwinds. Why? Some factors were pointed out by the Sri Lankan dignitary, but for us, as seen from New Delhi, the major challenge comes from a country which is not part of South Asia, but which has injected itself into South Asian dynamics. I'm naturally referring to China. Therefore, now you have a situation where each neighbor of India, almost without exception, finds it easy to play the India-China rivalry into South Asia. We are seeing this in Nepal, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and of course, our own relations with China and Pakistan are a class apart. So those of my colleagues in South Bloc today who are managing South Asia's relations with India, they have to constantly keep in mind that this is the region of immense interest for our national security. And yet, there is the China factor in every single relationship. The second trend is the fine management of India's relations with the great powers. Now, here, once again, the simple mantra India follows is that it must improve its relations with the West, namely US and EU. Secondly, it must engage with Russia, because only then you have a balancing situation. Thirdly, you still have to manage relations with China. But China is the more powerful neighbor. It's a 5 times bigger economy. War and conflict is not the way out for us. So you have to manage your relations with them and also finally befriend the other Asian power, Japan. So if you look at these 5 components, it becomes clear managing the great powers relationship is a big trend and it has to be watched all the time. The fourth is the salience of the Indo-Pacific in India's foreign policy. You will hear a lot about this Indo-Pacific. Where is this Indo-Pacific on the globe? Very clearly, it is defined as an area that combines all the waters and lands washed by the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. We have experts from the Indian Ocean here. Indian Ocean used to be the main thrust of India's foreign policy. It probably still is. But as part of our expansion of worldview, now Indo-Pacific is the new term and a whole lot of discussion can take place on that. Finally, there's a very special focus, and this is the last trend that I'm highlighting today, on reforming multilateralism. Now, there is multilateralism of the 1945 vintage, that is UN, and particularly UN Security Council and the other organs. But India is deeply unhappy with the Security Council because we strongly feel that Security Council represents the realities of 1945. That is the time when the Second World War ended. Today we are standing in 2024. So what India has done is to begin to take more interest in some of the newer multilateral groupings, and I would only mention 2. G20, none of you would have passed last year without getting G20 up to your ears. G20 was a big show for India's diplomacy, and India succeeded in delivering a very successful summit and presidency. So G20 and also BRICS, which has recently been expanded, these are 2 examples of new trend in India's adherence to multilateralism. Very quickly and very briefly, the 2 areas which have been chosen by the organizers make a great deal of sense. First is Africa. This is a domain of special interest to me. I spent many years on that continent. I even managed to write a full-scale book on India-Africa relations. What I can say is that if you study the relationships history closely, you will find that in the past decade, India-Africa partnership has made a number of advances. And slowly working from Africa, we have now gone on to the larger entity, which is the Global South. This is a trend that our IR experts will explain to you, has advantages but also disadvantages. When you talk of a bigger region, then a part of that region, Africa, even if it is the heart of the Global South, it tends to get neglected. And this is what happened. In the last year, we did 2 summits of the Global South, but we could not host the 4th India-Africa Summit So these are the challenges and limitations that we will have to be examining in the later session. And finally, West Asia. I would only make two comments. One is a political comment, which is that from 7th October, when Hamas staged that despicable terrorist attack on Israeli civilians, a train of very painful and tragic incidents have been unleashed. And now you have a situation where the world doesn't know how to stop this train heading to a disaster. So this is the political comment. We will have to see how the Israel-Hamas war ends and whether the regionalization is restricted or it becomes unbridled. But there is no doubt that what is happening in West Asia is impacting directly on India, and it is something very serious and grave. Dear friends, in the end, let me answer the question which may arise in your minds. We are studying law. We are interested in social sciences. Why are these organizers imposing so much of foreign policy on us today? Why should I study international relations? I have not opted for it. I can get some news from the front pages of newspapers. Let's just forget about all this. My answer is, you cannot afford to ignore international relations and foreign policy in this day and age. India is going to be a bigger partner on the world stage. India has global interests. The world is becoming more and more dangerous. We have a truly foreign policy prime minister. We have, after a very long hiatus, a foreign minister who's a truly professional diplomat. And above all, the world indeed is looking to India to provide leadership and, more importantly, to provide new ideas. Therefore, I think there is a very heavy responsibility that lies on the shoulders of our strategic community, but more importantly, on your shoulders, the future leaders of India, Indian citizens, who are now being trained at this wonderful university to play their role in the coming decades. And therefore, I would like to submit that this conference is very timely, it is very purposeful, and every minute that you spend here until the evening today, this should be put to good use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This conference is not merely an academic discourse. It is a catalyst for informed dialogue, insightful analysis, and the formulation of actionable strategies. Your active participation, diverse perspectives, and critical thinking will shape the discourse and pave the way for deeper understanding of India's role in global arena. So let us embark on this intellectual journey together, engage in discussions, challenge assumptions, and propose innovative solutions. Remember, the future of India's foreign policy hinges on a collective understanding and strategic vision. I call upon Ms. Aditi Dubey, Assistant Professor and Organizing Secretary, First RGNUL Young Scholars Conference, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, it gives me immense pleasure to extend heartfelt gratitude to all of you who graced the inaugural session of the first RGNUL Young Scholars Conference with your presence. Your participation and support have made this event a resounding success. First and foremost, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to our esteemed Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Anand Pawar. Even though he couldn't be there with us physically, his vision and leadership have been instrumental in bringing this conference to fruition. We are deeply honored to have the distinguished presence of our chief guest, Honorable Justice Thurai Raja, whose insightful remarks have set a tone of inspiration for all the participants. A special word of thanks to our Dean Academics, Professor Dr. Kamaljeet Kaur, for her unwavering support throughout the planning and execution of this conference. Her dedication has been invaluable. Our gratitude also goes to Dr. Siddharth Taya, the Deputy Registrar, for his meticulous coordination and administrative support who ensured the smooth functioning of this event. We are privileged to have Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia as our keynote speaker. So your expertise and perspective have enriched the discussion and deliberations of this conference. And the kind of morale you have boosted for all of us to undertake such events in future will surely guide us. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed dignitaries, Professor Dr. Muhammad Khalid, Professor Dr. Ashwini K. Mohapatra, Professor Dr. Sujata Aishwarya, Professor Dr. Suresh Kumar, Professor Dr. Mujib Alam, Professor Dr. Baba Singh, and Dr. Deepak Singh. Your presence had added immense value to this gathering. I also would like to thank our finance officer of RGNUL, Dr. Neeraj Pasricha, and the faculty members, Dr. Manpreet, Dr. Sangeeta, Dr. Wazida, Dr. Basant sir, for their gracing this event with your presence. Lastly, my heartfelt thank you to all the participants and students whose presence and participation at this inaugural session has made this event a big success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request everyone to please stand up for the national anthem. I now request the dignitaries and the participants to go for the high tea at the basement. Students, please be seated. The high tea will be till 11:45 and we shall assemble again here for the next session, which is plenary.